Is his father's money a good enough reason for the police to lay low? Imagine being born into one of the wealthiest families out there and having all the material comfort one can have. Your dad gives you a Lamborghini as a present for passing your driver's test, and you celebrate by smashing your brand new car into an innocent woman. That's the terrible story of rich kid Brendan Khuri, who at age 17 killed 32-year-old Monique Munoz while illegally speeding through Beverly Hills. But has justice been brought for Monique? Her family doesn't think so. Here's all the details behind the rich kid who turned into a monstrous killer. Brendan Khuri was born in 2003 to American multi-millionaire businessman James Khuri. The tycoon owns Khuri Enterprises and is the CEO of FJ Holdings, which is a trading card distribution firm that deals with iconic brands like Amazon. His company deals with a huge variety of trading cards, such as the popular Pokemon cards, which mostly targets a younger audience. Khuri Enterprises deals with real estate, and James has featured in many magazines as a case study for successful business owners and high-income Americans. James Khuri's Instagram is filled with pictures of his cars and posts where he brags about his good deeds. He has almost 2 million followers, many of which see him as a role model. But there's a much darker reality behind the successful businessman. In January 2019, James Khuri was arrested for domestic violence. In August 2021, he was arrested on the same charges once more. Indeed, James might have let his wealth and status go to his head, thinking financial power justifies violence, and this might have had an effect on his son, Brendan. If Brendan lived under the shadow of his father, who taught him being rich also means being aggressive, then Brendan didn't exactly have the perfect role model at home. Clearly, Brendan was his dad's pride and glory, as many of his Instagram posts show the two closely together, looking like a happy family. It's safe to say that James had a big influence on Brendan. Of course, that also means Brendan had a very privileged life. He was surrounded by luxury and enjoyed a lifestyle which very few people can afford. At the beginning of 2021, Brendan passed his driver's test. How did his father reward him? With a brand new Lamborghini Urus. To those of you who aren't car fanatics, this is a turbocharged SUV that can achieve 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds. So maybe this is not the best first car for your underage son? As you can imagine, Brendan was more than ecstatic to push his Lamborghini's limits and see just what this supercar could achieve. After all, this was a 17-year-old boy who had just gotten his driver's license. So on February 17th, 2021, at around 5:15 p.m., Brendan took the car for a spin on Olympic Boulevard. Next to him was his girlfriend, who was probably just as excited as he was. Before long, Brendan crashed his Lamborghini into a Lexus. He was driving at 120 miles per hour. The impact was so hard, the Lexus split in two, and inside the car was 32-year-old Monique Munoz, who worked as a receptionist in the area. Monique had big plans. She had just finished her university courses and was getting ready for law school. However, none of her plans would come to fruition as her life was cut tragically short by a speeding 17-year-old. Monique was pronounced dead at the scene. The wreckage was so bad she had to be cut out of her vehicle. Brendan, on the other hand, sustained non-life-threatening head injuries and was transported to a nearby hospital. He recovered pretty quickly and got home soon after the accident. In a normal series of events, when a clearly reckless teenager crashes into a person and kills them, they are immediately arrested. So why wasn't Brendan arrested at the scene of the crime? Is his father's money a good enough reason for the police to lay low? Monique's tragic death caused a public uproar that demanded Brendan be arrested. Since the police didn't arrest Brendan at the scene of the crime, the case went on to the district attorney, George Gaskin, But Gaskin didn't push the case forward either. Can you imagine how Monique's family felt at this time? It's one thing to be mourning and in shock from losing your daughter, and a whole other thing to face the frustrating reality of a corrupted police who is unwilling to bring justice for your daughter. Within a few days, there was a candlelight vigil for Monique and a protest where dozens of people participated, asking the police to hold Monique's killer accountable for his crimes. The protest quickly snowballed, gaining the attention of people worldwide. Former Star Trek actor Will Wheaton reposted an article about the events too, in order to boost the signal on this appalling story. The article discussed how millionaire James Khuri threw money left and right to cover up for his son. The driver's father, James Khuri, is a millionaire and has been throwing money to get any news coverage of the incident pushed to the back of Google and to have positive articles of himself populated instead. Days after the crash, when everyone knew it was Brendan who killed Monique and everyone knew about James using his wealth to help his son escape the police, neither Brendan nor his father admitted to their guilt. Brendan was even seen partying, yes, partying around town, just days after killing someone. Apparently, someone approached him at the party and told him he was a killer, to which Brendan replied by laughing in his face. This is where the education his dad gave him really shows. What did James Khuri do in response to this? Well, except for spending a lot of time deleting negative comments on his Instagram, nothing. In March 2021, it seemed like justice had finally been brought to the Munoz family, as Brendan was arrested and charged with vehicular manslaughter. Reports about Brendan's street racing were piling up, and CCTV footage shows an Audi sports car that Brendan was reportedly racing that day. When the crime scene photos came out, clearly showing a third car at the scene, the Khuri family strongly denied anyone else being involved in the crime. Nevertheless, the photos and reports say otherwise. There were several witnesses to the crash, as of course there were many people driving down Olympic Boulevard at the time of the accident. All witnesses told the same story. Two cars, a Lamborghini and an Audi, were racing down the boulevard at a ridiculous speed, in broad daylight. Indeed, 120 miles per hour is not an acceptable speed on any public road in any town whatsoever. Even less so at 5 p.m. on a weekday when many people are leaving work and driving home. So Brendan was reckless and unwilling to accept his guilt following the horrible accident. Can you think of anyone else responsible for his actions except for him? That's right, social media quickly turned towards James Khuri as well, as people started digging through his social media posts. James was not only a rich and powerful man with a history for domestic violence, he also used social media to promote illegal car racing several times. In one of his posts, James bragged about winning a street race in his Lamborghini against two motorcycle riders. If that's not a bad influence on his son, I don't know what is. There are a myriad of wrong things about this post, inciting to car racing, driving under the influence, and bragging about it, and simply his arrogant attitude, which shows a rich man not caring about the law simply because he's wealthy and he has a lot of followers. No wonder Brendan laughed in someone's face after they called him a killer. Just like his father, Brendan seems to feel no remorse. In March, over 1 month from the accident, Brendan also wrote a long apology to Monique's family on social media saying, "I am aware that the time it has taken me to communicate this has caused further pain for everyone affected. Knowing that this will never do justice for the family of Monique Munoz, I want to apologize to the Munoz family for the tragic loss of their daughter." It seemed as though the Khuri family was finally ready to face the consequences of their actions. Finally, Brendan made his first court appearance in the spring of 2021. He sat with his mother, both tearing up as they listened to the prosecutor. At last, Brendan admitted guilt for his actions. Apparently, Brendan apologized to Monique's family and claimed full responsibility for what happened in February that year. It's unclear just how much remorse Brendan felt for his actions, and how much of what he said was just so he can please the court and get the smallest sentence possible. Although Brendan pleaded guilty, Monique's family's trials and tribulations were far from over. Brendan was put in house arrest until his next hearing in June 2021. House arrest for a teenager in a super luxurious mansion doesn't exactly seem like a fitting sentence for a killer. It's also worth noting that the whole world was in a sort of house arrest in 2021 due to the coronavirus pandemic lockdown, so Brendan spending 2 or 3 months in a house arrest sounded like a joke to Monique's family. In In June, in preparation for Brendan's trial, the district attorney said, for Khuri, if he's found guilty, he could face between 1 and 6 years in prison. In the summer of 2021, Brendan's case seemed to hit a dead end, as there was 0 reports from his trial. What happened? Did James pay someone else? Everyone was wondering if Brendan was going to spend any time behind bars after his reckless murder of Monique Munoz. In October, news started pouring out about Brendan finally being given a sentence. On Tuesday, October 21st, Brendan began his prison stint 6 months after pleading guilty to vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence in Inglewood Juvenile Court. However, the Khuri defense team asked prosecutors that their client should serve the majority of his sentence, about 4 years, on probation at his family's mansion, according to the Daily Mail. This outraged both the prosecuting team and people following the case, especially since Monique's family, who felt that there couldn't be any justice for their daughter's killer until he was behind bars. But as people grew enraged, Brendan's defense grew stronger, and new information came to light. Mark Worksman, an attorney representing Brendan, said the teenager was diagnosed with autism, depression, and attention deficit disorder following the crash, where he allegedly sustained brain injuries. However, autism is not caused by brain injuries, and the injuries sustained by Brendan in the car accident were minor, as all reports, including the hospitals, pointed out. Psychologist Karen Schiltz testified before the Los Angeles County Superior Court that Brendan likely suffered from autism his entire life but was never diagnosed. Schiltz added that Brendan would be victimized if he was sent to an LA County juvenile camp, so his condition was his protection. But people weren't sure if this was just another one of James's schemes, paying people to say whatever is necessary to protect his son from prison. Maybe anyone would protect their children from going to prison, but one way or another, Brendan must be held accountable for his actions. Killing someone should not be taken lightly, no matter your social and financial status. As Brendan was moved from the juvenile prison to house arrest, Monique's family is far from over the tragedy. Monique's cousin, Cynthia Crespin, told the court, "House arrest in a mansion is not a punishment. He took an innocent life in a careless and senseless way. Continuing his life as usual in his luxurious home might even mean Brendan will never understand the real consequences of his actions. When he killed Monique, Brendan already had a record of reckless driving in Beverly Hills, and he had just gotten his driver's license for 2 weeks. This means that either he had been illegally driving without a license, or that within those 2 weeks, he managed to break the law and speed past the limit several times. Brendan's track record is why the prosecutors had pushed for the 17-year-old to be sent to a juvenile camp. LAPD officials testified in court how Brendan had been cited twice for excessive speeding and had even had his license suspended over his alleged antics on the supercar. There's more. Brendan even boasted about his racing and drifting activities on social media in the weeks leading up to the crash. With all this information available, it's no wonder people have been protesting against Brendan's house arrest. Monique's family is urging judges to give Brendan the sentence he deserves. Monique's mother, Carol, said, "I want justice for my daughter. I feel she deserves that. We're making plans to bury my daughter, and this juvenile individual is still walking around. I don't think it's fair. She didn't deserve this." Brendan's lack of remorse has been noticed by many people, and simply taking a look at his father's behavior might explain this. On August 11th, 2021, while his son was waiting for a sentence, James Khuri was arrested for assault and domestic violence against his wife. This again sheds some light on the troubled home Brendan grew up in. Over the last year, James Khuri has been trying to reach a settlement with Monique's family outside of court. But although he has offered a big yet undisclosed sum of money, Monique's parents are far from done with seeking justice for their daughter. Maybe this is the first time James learns that money isn't a solution to everything. In the end, who can put a price on the family's dead child? In the end, Brendan's underage status and presumed autism meant that he would spend his sentence under house arrest. As many people consider this sentence to be unreasonably light in the eyes of the law, all Monique's family can hope is that Brendan and his father will learn something from this, and perhaps try to change their behavior in the future.